What started as an Amber Alert for a missing 17-year-old Texas girl quickly turned into a capital murder charge. Now, officials are searching for another suspect in the case who is still on the run.
And I think initially I thought, well, then, maybe she is also, in grave danger. But obviously that turned out not to be the case.
Former CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder says she received the Amber Alert last week when 17-year-old Natalie Navarro went missing. But within hours, the alert was canceled and Navarro was charged with capital murder.
It is a very drastic switch, and what they're charging her with is very serious. They're not undercharging her, right? They're charging her with capital murder, which comes with death or life in prison.
Texas officials now say the 17-year-old is responsible for the death of 21-year-old Arturo Pena. He was first reported missing to Dallas, Texas police on August 27th. Days later, on August 29th, officers in nearby Garland, Texas, were dispatched to the city's south side for reports of a man passed out in a vehicle. When officers arrived on the scene, they found Pena had been shot and killed. Days later, on August 31st, the Amber Alert was put out for Navarro, who was last seen that afternoon in Dallas. The following day, on September 1st, officials announced Navarro was in police custody. Investigators tracked her down to Webb County, Texas, about 7 hours south of Dallas, near the U.S.-Mexico border.
She was found in Laredo, Texas, which is 6-7-ish hours away, almost at the border. So what that tells me is that she was most likely trying to leave the country at that point, and they were able to catch her. So that part's interesting too.
Navarro was arraigned in Webb County, but is awaiting formal charges, which will be handed down when she's transported to Dallas County. Right now, she's being held on $1 million bond. Walder says that's likely because she's a flight risk who may have been on her way to Mexico.
What I can see in a case like this, where you have someone under the age of 18, is that they're going to argue, her brain's not fully developed. She didn't know necessarily the difference between right and wrong. That's not an insanity defense, but it's just kind of talking to the fact that she's so young. But I do think what the prosecution would push back on is she clearly knew it was wrong because she fled almost 7 hours away, most likely to cross the border into Mexico, given how close Laredo is. And so that indicates that, you knew what you did was wrong and you were trying to get away from it, and you were trying to get away from, facing consequences because of it.
Right now, investigators are still working to determine what the relationship between Navarro and Pena was and whether there was a motive in the case. Walder believes investigators must have some crucial evidence to bring such serious charges so quickly after Navarro's arrest.
So they must have a significant amount of evidence, basically putting the gun in her hand, right? Because that is and they made a very quick charge as well, very quick jump. And so there just must be a preponderance of evidence in this case, because I know a lot of times states are hesitant to charge 17-year-olds, right, with capital murder. So I believe in this case, they probably have an overwhelming amount of evidence that they were able to get very, very quickly.
So far, investigators have kept those details close to the vest. Walder says there may be several explanations for that, including the search for 21-year-old Yordy Martinez, who is also wanted in connection to Pena's murder.
Probably two reasons. I think they're trying to locate Mr. Martinez, and they want her to talk about where he might be. And so they don't want that information out there. And I also think, too, that they are most likely trying to speak with the victim's family and see what kind of plea deals can be reached in turn for information, leading to the apprehension of Mr. Martinez. So my guess is that's probably what's going on behind the scenes, because the reality is most cases actually plead out, right? Most don't play out in courtrooms. And my guess is that's where this case might go with a 17-year-old. And I think that's why they're playing their cards so close, is because they're trying to locate Mr. Martinez quickly.
Walder says it's possible Martinez made his way across the border into Mexico.
He could have possibly been fleeing south into Mexico and may have actually crossed the border at this point. Obviously, I don't know for certain. So I think the next thing would be to alert Mexico that this individual may be in their country, and to be working with them. Typically, Mexican authorities are pretty good about extraditing back. It takes a while, but they're typically pretty good.
Because Martinez faces a capital murder charge, the death penalty could be on the table if he's convicted. But if he's already fled to Mexico, Walder says that's no longer an option.
Usually the FBI is going to get involved in a case like this because now it's spanning sort of transnational. And so local Dallas police, probably in this case, or Garland police, will be working now with the FBI. The FBI is going to be taking that lead to work with Mexico in regards to this. Mexico then will be working with their local law enforcement to try to locate him. It's going to take some time. I mean, I have no delusions of grandeur about that. The thing with Mexico is we do have an extradition treaty with them. But if Mr. Martinez is caught and we bring him back, Mexico does not have the death penalty. So they will not extradite if we have death penalty on the table. So it would have to be taken off.
As for motive, Walder says that may be more difficult to pin down. Both Martinez's and Navarro's cell phone use may be of value to investigators.
I think that motive will be obviously key because that is something that I would think the defense would try to poke holes in. Why would she do something like this? I suspect that they will argue self-defense in some way, shape, or form, just simply because that seems to fit and it's what makes the most sense from, a defense point of view. But I think motive is probably going to be one of the hardest things to prove. However, teenagers use their phones a lot and leave a huge digital trail. And so I would imagine that once they start digging into the digital forensics of this case, that they are going to find a treasure trove of information.
Garland police say the investigation into Pena's murder is still ongoing. Anyone with more information about Martinez's whereabouts is asked to contact the Garland Police Department or submit an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Gillespie.